Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mindset, Money, Success. And I'm your host, Lorraine Marshall. And today we have a guest. And as you can see, it's Candice Mason. And she's got this thing called Mother Cuppa. So today we're going to talk to Candice about her idea and how she got started with this Mother Cuppa entrepreneurial idea. Hello, Candice.
Hello, thank you for having me, Lorraine. It's lovely to be here.
Great. Do you want to introduce yourself a bit more and tell us about
Yes, of
the idea,
course. So,
how it started?
I'm Candice. I am a founder of Mother Cuppa, which is a herbal tea brand. The teas are designed to support women's hormone health and well-being, and that's as a result of a journey that I've had with my own hormone health and a condition that I've had. I've had quite a few operations and I've been placed in a medically induced menopause. And I've often looked for more natural solutions to support my body. That's a 20-year story in about 30
Oh,
seconds.
it's true.
But Mother Cuppa was launched 2 years ago, just gone the last October, and it's had a really fantastic start to its business journey. But launching a product-based business comes with some interesting challenges, particularly when it's growing quite fast, because you need to make sure you've got enough stock to sort of make sure you've got your clients allowing that growth to be able to be delivered, but ensuring that the funds are coming in quick enough to kind of restock the blends. So I've been on an interesting journey with cash flow forecasting and stock management, which is quite new to me. And I think you and I met via a Facebook group, we think, when I was in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign. So
That's
hopefully I can share
right.
a little
Because
bit more
I
about that.
was really interested in how you were doing that. Because I mean, I've been involved in grants and lottery bids. I was even a European funding advisor and then a monitor of European funded projects a long time ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. I remember those days.
Yeah. So, when I saw that you were crowdfunding for a business that you were starting, I was very interested because a lot of women go through all of these traumas of divorce, separation, death of a partner, and sometimes they're left quite tragically with basically nothing left. So telling stories like yours, I think is helpful to say, look, there is different ways forward. And so if you could share a little bit more about, you've
Yeah,
told
of
us about
course.
your
And I
health thing, but
think,
if you can just share a bit more about why you started your crowdfunding and what you did.
yeah, yeah. And, being a female founder is a little bit more tricky because we often are navigating different pathways of life, be that young children, separations, caring for parents, all of those lovely things that happen in them seem to happen all at the same time in the middle of our life. And
Yeah.
I am the same. I'm at that stage of life. My daughter was going off to uni, and I was thinking, gosh, really always wanted to start a business, and I've got this lovely idea, and I just didn't know how to do it. So to get the business off the ground, I actually took out a UK startup loan, just a small amount to kind of get myself going. That is still to this day the best rates for borrowing money. And I have done quite a lot of investigation over sort of from launching to the 2 years in around females and funding for businesses. And it's a bit of a minefield.
That's,
And
I think, the thing that I saw.
yeah,
Yeah.
you there are more negative stories than there are positive
Mm.
stories. So we go into funding for our businesses a bit off the back foot in what is typically quite a male dominated world.
Mhm.
Conversations are definitely happening, but it's not necessarily converting in the same way that we need. And the other thing that I was quite clear about, which that did put me off, of course, the other thing I was quite clear about was that I didn't really want a boss. I wanted the business to be mine. So investment into the business needed to be just right in order for what I wanted to achieve with the business. So it kind of ruled out that sort of angel investment bit. I just don't feel ready. 2 years in, I feel like that's not quite right for us
No.
yet. And the challenge that I had is that I wanted to add a new blend to my product range. We've got 2 years under my belt. I've got a proven track record. We've got traction. We've got very repeat customers because we operate a subscription-based model. And they were asking me for more blends to support them with specific health things, which I have millions of recipes. So I was desperate to get one out. And that's really exciting to add a new product to your range. Equally, by adding a new product to your range, you're increasing your potential for turnover. I can do some things to increase average order value. So it's all good things for the business. So adding a product was the right thing and it was the right time. But I had zero money because we've grown so fast. Everything we've earned has literally been reinvested back into the business.
Yeah.
So there I am at the drawing board with these horrible funding stats around female-founded businesses and thinking, I don't really want a boss who invests and tells me what I can and can't do with the money. What else can I do? So I began exploring those options, and crowdfunding had come up quite a few times, and it felt really fitting because when I'd launched my business, one of the things that I'd really wanted to try and achieve was that this was a business that developed and grew with the women it was serving. Yeah. So if we were adding a new blend, I wanted those women to be involved in choosing what that was going to be, voting for their health, becoming part of the taste testing team. Like, I really wanted to include my customers in the business journey with me. So crowdfunding felt like a good solution. Yeah. There's a couple of options with crowdfunding. The first one is equity-based crowdfunding, and the second is donation-based crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. So equity-based crowdfunding is where you host your opportunity on a platform. Anybody can contribute to that via the platform and your own personal marketing, and they will effectively own a percentage of your business, whatever you see that fit. So for £100, they might get minus, point something of a percent or something. Big businesses like Brewdog are probably the most famous for equity.
That's what they did, the equity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So their customers own a share of their business, basically. Didn't feel like that was quite right. And it's probably worth me mentioning at this point, I actually only needed £7,000 to bring a new blend to market, which is a huge sum of money in anybody's world. Yes. But in the business world, that's really a drop in the ocean. Yeah, really tiny. And I could have gone for bigger, but it just I didn't need to. So I didn't want to do that. So the donation-based funding made a little bit more sense. One of the unique things that we did with our crowdfunding campaign was host it via our own website. So it was hosted on Mother Cuppa's website. I've yet to meet another business that have done that. And what that meant was that I had full control over over what was happening. I'm just going to sit back here because the sun's coming in my window. I'm sorry to interrupt your podcast. I'm just going to pull my blind down a little bit. There we go. Sorry, Lorraine. So I decided to host it through my website, and there were 3 opportunities for people to get involved. So the first one is, as you would expect, a donation towards the business. So in my mind, I was thinking that's going to be my mum. She's the one that's going to want to make a donation. The second option was to pre-order the product ahead of its release date. Mm-hmm. And we had several different denominations. So you could get involved for as little as £10 right up to a couple of £100 and everything kind of in between. So it was pre-ordering for just one box of the product or a subscription over a certain period of time or several boxes. Mm-hmm. And then the final option to get involved was that I reached out to some female-founded colleagues who ran their own businesses and asked them very nicely, would you gift an item of your services or products to my campaign so that I could effectively sell it, but all of the money will be used towards the crowdfunding campaign. Now, there's a couple of benefits to a business getting involved in that. The first thing was it was being hosted on my website. It was going out into my mailing list. And for every business that contributes they would get marketing on my social media and a live opportunity to do a live on Instagram where they could share more about their business, what they do, and what they've gifted to the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So from their point of view, that was 3 or 4 different touch points for their business kind of being shown to my audience, which I'd sort of reached out to businesses that would have products that I thought my audience would like to do anyway. So we had some skincare, we had a sort of wellness clothing brand, we had some nutritionists, we had some menopause coaches, there was some business packages, there was breath work and yoga retreats and all sorts of bits and pieces. Mm-hmm. So all again for different denominations. I think they started at sort of £15 right up to £250 and everything in between. We had silk scarves, we had hampers, just so many. And initially I'd started with 20 businesses. And by the end of the second week, I had to say no more because we had 60 businesses come forward. And I think just because they saw for a whole month of doing the crowdfunding campaign, I was totally switched on every single platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, my emails, so on and so forth. So it got off to a really good start. We launched day one. I think we did about £1,500 in the first 3 hours, like an amazing amount. And we very successfully reached our target 2 days ahead of the end date and in fact exceeded the target. So it went really well. The things I'm sharing about my learnings are, I launched the crowdfunding campaign in October, the 1st of October. I was due to launch that crowdfunding campaign in the January of 2024.
Right.
And over Christmas, I had a complete wobble and thought, oh God, I can't do this. I'm too scared. I didn't want to fail very publicly. I felt really uncomfortable asking people for money. It was really nasty to myself.
Something that you've got to boost yourself up to. It's a mindset thing, isn't it?
You
totally
mentioned
a mindset thing
earlier, and it's so true. Like I had a real blocker around asking people for money and not asking for too much and trying not to make it too complicated, having a good message about why I was doing it. So really it all looked very successful and it did really, really well, Lorraine, but there was a lot of work, 9 months worth of work of me really working on myself and kind of getting that marketing bit right that I felt comfortable to deliver on. So it's really interesting, and I've subsequently had conversations with women who've said exactly the same around the money thing, like that is a real blocker for us ladies. And the way I got around it was, firstly, I had to really rethink it. So I wasn't asking people for money so that I could have a luxury holiday. Mother Cuppa was asking its community to get involved and help it have a really fighting chance to get this new blend off the ground. And the reason Mother Cuppa needed to ask for that is that she's a fledgling business, and without input, she wasn't going to go very much further without becoming quite stale. Mother Cuppa hasn't paid me a salary in the 2 years that I've run it yet. And that's a really honest reflection of what it's like to launch a product business. And I feel really strongly about this message that you get around social media, and you can earn 6 figures overnight and £10,000 months and all that sort of stuff. And it's really not real. It's really not real. I mean, Mother Cuppa is turning over some really good numbers, but that isn't enough to pay me yet. So there was really lots of conversations with myself around that bit and around that messaging, and the reality that for every £1 invested in female founders businesses, only 2% of it is going to women. So that's a really real conversation. That's a UK fact. So that was kind of what I wanted to weave in to my marketing with the crowdfunding campaign. I owe its success to being really honest. I think that's what it is. I haven't got huge numbers, and this is one thing I really want to stress. I have 3,000 followers on my Instagram platform. I have about 2,500 in my email list, of which only 1,500 are very active. I had 267 people that I'd driven to a wait list. I've got about 2,000 on LinkedIn, and I have a very inconsistent TikTok page with about 4,000. So none of my numbers are huge. You do not need big follower numbers to do this. I've had 3,000 customers in my first 2-year purchase from Mother Cuppa, but they haven't all come back. So let's assume at least 50% to 70% of those are still active customers. Again, not huge numbers at all. So I really want to stress that you don't need big business numbers to make this a reality. I think being really clear on your why are you doing this, what is it you're trying to achieve and why, and what's the benefit to that customer who might like to get involved. So for me, everybody got a piece of the product when it's ready. It's due out in a few weeks' time. And I was pretty relentless with my marketing. I was switched on for 20, well, it ended up being about 6 weeks in the end.
With the marketing, did you just go totally organic with the marketing? And there was no paid ads?
No paid ads at all. No paid ads. You could go down that route. I would put that into your budget for if you're going to ask for your money, that needs to go in. Working out the total amount that you need isn't just the product, it's the flyers that need adapting to be able to go back out with deliveries. It's bits on the website that are going to need to be adapted to reflect adding a new product. It's some product photography. So all of those things came into that big fund. No, with the marketing, it was all organic. So 2 weeks before we launched, I did a whole week of, as what I would describe as teaser content. Something's coming, what could it be, little secret bits and pieces. And I did that Instagram mostly, bit of email and a bit of LinkedIn and my personal Facebook page. And I turned up in stories on Instagram more than once a day throughout the whole period. So that was week 1. Then we announced, that was it. We drove so in that first week, we were saying something's coming, get yourself on the wait list, and we're doing a live on Instagram in 1 week's time to announce what's happening. So I went live on the second week. The biggest number of people I've had live was about 58 or something. Again, not a huge number of people, but enough that it was really exciting. And we announced that Mother Cuppa was launching a crowdfunding campaign, why we were doing it. But I told them it is to launch a new blend, but the new blend is a complete secret. You have to be on the wait list if you want to find out what this new blend is.
That's a good idea, really good.
Yeah, so kept a few little teasers in there to kind of give that almost fear of missing out. Like, what is it? I want to be involved, especially for your diehard business fans of your business. So the wait list, we had 268 or whatever I said, 58 people on there. We launched that the following week, and those people were allowed 3 hours ahead of it being open for everybody. So for 3 hours, they could be the first people to see what these rewards were from the female founded businesses, find out more about the blend. And I'm not joking, my husband and I got up, we were having a cup of tea in bed, it was opening at 6 a.m. So I didn't muck around. We switched everything on at literally 5 minutes to 6, just to run some final tests before it went completely live to those on the waiting list. And the first order came in that bit before it was officially live. So somebody was waiting on the other end to make their purchase. And then it was like the floodgates opened. And for that first 3 hours, like I say, it was about £1,500. Was crazy. And the rewards went brilliantly. Everybody pre-ordered the product. And then from 9 a.m. that day, it was open to everybody. And I did a live every day. I did some content around what the product was. I did some content around the stats around female founded businesses, which is what I think you'd seen.
That's the post I saw, because I
Yeah,
know how difficult it is. I founded a business a long time ago, and I went to the bank for a business account. And
yeah.
because I had a bad record at that point, they said I couldn't even have a business account. But
Gosh, okay.
I still did the business, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
when I started banking lots of money in cash into an ordinary account, I got drawn into the manager's office to ask,
okay.
where's the money coming from, Lorraine?
Yeah,
And I went,
yeah.
well, that business I asked about the business account a few months ago. Well, this is the business I've started.
Yeah.
And the bank manager's face was like, oh, I think we should open you a business account.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you, Lorraine. Yeah, we do have to overcome a few hurdles, don't we?
Yeah.
Um, it definitely was successful because I had spent that time kind of working on myself a little bit. Like I was really scared to very publicly fail in front of my 3,000 followers. It was really difficult. But what was really funny was sort of as we were nearing the end, we did some interesting things in that last week. We opened up bidding, so any of the sort of gifted rewards that were remaining, one of which included afternoon tea with myself, were, if they were still available on the sort of by midday on the Sunday when it was closing, they would go to the highest bidder. So they could still be purchased, but if you maybe couldn't quite afford to purchase it at the purchase rate and it happened to still be available and you'd put in the next highest bid, it was going to go to you. So
Yeah.
that created a lovely little flurry in the last few days. But I remember waking up, the crowdfunding campaign was due to finish at 5 p.m. on the Sunday, and I'd woken up on the Monday before thinking, I think we'd gotten to about £5,500 or £6,000. And I woke up thinking, oh shit, we've still got like a long way to go. What happens? What am I going to say to people if we don't actually achieve this? Because I'd put that totally to the back of my mind because I'd had to say to myself, you are going to do this,
Yeah.
come hell or high water. But of course, I then started thinking, okay, I better type out some words of how I might approach this. Are we going to refund? Are we going to try and be able to go ahead with it anyway, but the website won't change? Or what are we going to do? No product photography. What can we do? So I'd started drafting something out. That was on the Monday. And by the Wednesday or Thursday, I was like, holy crap, we're going to exceed the target. Like, I don't know what happened in that last week. It just picked up all this momentum. And I couldn't believe it. So I had to start thinking, what am I going to tell people when we've hit the target and we're going to carry on? Like, how am I going to explain that to people? So we actually hit the target at midday on the Friday, so 2 days before the end, live while I was with one of these ladies who'd gifted a reward. It was the most exciting thing ever because I could see it flashing up on my phone, and I was like, "Oh my God, I think we've just done it." So what we sort of explained to people was the benefit of exceeding the target allowed us to purchase the tea in particular in its next, so not minimum order quantities, but in its next bracket, which would then allow us not just to deliver on the pre-orders, but for that blend to be able to stay in for longer and remain a permanent blend to the brand, which is what I'd already hoped would happen. And again, people just totally understood that. So we closed on the Friday, the Sunday at 5 p.m. at £9,500.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, in 27 days.
Really,
So
really good going. Yeah.
yeah, I was chuffed with myself. I was pretty exhausted, but I was really elated by that. So, and honestly, I'm nothing special. Like if I could do it, anybody could do it. So
Yeah.
it is just worth a try. And yeah.
Obviously, did you have support from other people? Like, did you have your family on board, or was it all
Yeah, so
your momentum?
really, really good question. So I remember like I had to phone my mum. Well, I phoned my mum a few weeks before. I hadn't really said anything to her about it. And the reason why was because I had to explain it to her. And I just thought, she's never run a business. Like, she's totally not going to get what this is. She has a worse mindset around money than I do. And I knew she would find it really uncomfortable. But once we'd launched and we were a few hours in and she saw what was happening, she got really excited and started like bidding on things and, oh, can I purchase that? And so, having thought she would make a reasonable donation, she actually didn't at all. She just purchased a load of the products and the services that were available, and the blend, obviously. So it was really great to have her understanding that. My husband was in the background adding all of these women who were coming forward saying, I'll gift you something, what can I give you? Because there was quite a lot of admin to that. Like, they had to get their product photos, I had to get, you know, their logo, the pricing, description of the product, that all needed to go on the website, all needed to go in the emails. So my husband James decided he'd take full control over what was happening on the website, and I would take email marketing and marketing. And then I had a friend who does a little bit of social media for me, just kind of in the background, so that I could voice note her and say, oh, what should I put on the stories for this? And I want to say that, what's the best way to kind of say it? So she was just kind of in my voice notes, particularly in that first week, kind of getting everything off the ground. And yeah, it was really reassuring to have her there, because she understood social media, which I can't say is necessarily one of my strengths, although clearly we did very well. In my stories every day, I was showing up with an update of where we were at and a screenshot of the barometer, talking about the product. But on LinkedIn, I was talking about it from a business perspective. So I was talking about the crowdfunding, but I was saying, like, today I've learned to do this, and today we reached this milestone in the campaign because I'd done this. So I was kind of sharing it from the business journey, which yeah, exactly. So again, I got quite a lot of traction on LinkedIn, I think, from other business owners who were like, oh my God, this is really interesting. And so yeah, that's where we're at, Lorraine. So
it's a brilliant story. And the other thing I was wanting to just chip in is that when you start an entrepreneur, if you haven't got the support, another way to get support is to use a virtual assistant, so you can actually go and reach out to someone who can support you in the background, because sometimes you just need a little bit of extra helping hand.
Oh, 100%. And also, so firstly, I'd found a woman through all my digging around research that was actually quite local to me, who had, a few years before, she'd run quite a big crowdfunding campaign. She was developing an app. She did it quite differently to me, but she raised £27,000. It was a big chunk of money. And I just reached out to her and said, look, not the same scale, but can I just pick your brains and ask a few questions? And I came across a couple of podcasts where other people had done it, so I'd listened to a few of those as well. And I'm on some very low cost female sort of networking groups and what have you. And again, I'd reached out to the groups and were like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. I don't suppose you could share it, or even just like the posts and do something and just interact. And I was really taken aback by how genuinely involved people wanted to be. And even if they weren't contributing, and I can't tell you how many people sent me a message saying, I'm so sorry, I can't donate more than £10, but I'm really impressed with what you're doing. I'm really proud of you. And just lovely messages. And I just hadn't expected that at all. So even from people who just didn't want to get involved monetarily, just were really championing me as a person. And that was
that's really good. That's very good, because I mean, I know how big the fear is to do something like that, because there is big fear around it. And the money thing is, there's sometimes blockages. And if you've been money shamed in the past, where somebody's actually said, oh, you can't do this, and you haven't got any money, and when you've been through that, which I know a lot of women experience from partners as well, it's really difficult to move forward with an independent business of your own.
It's really interesting, because actually the conclusion I came to, and I've got my own stories and experiences of why I am the person I am today. And really, what I worked out for me, and I don't know if that's the same as everybody, but really the only one holding me back was me. And I've told myself all sorts of stories over the years. For example, I have dyscalculia, which is dyslexia with numbers. So who's the best person to talk to about numbers? Well, not me, that's for sure, because I've told myself all these millions of stories about how I'm really crap with numbers. And yet it was me who worked out all the costings, what we were going to need, thought of everything. So actually those stories that I'm telling myself are not necessarily true if I really want something. So that's kind of the conclusion that I come to around a lot of the things I'd been telling myself about the fear factor and everything was, you're the only one that's holding yourself back.
Yeah.
So for me, that was, again, part of the mindset piece about just kind of reframing a few things. I mean, I've pretty much gone back to my old ways now, Lorraine, like tell myself I'm crap with numbers and what have you. So, but it just goes to show, doesn't it?
No, but the thing is, you've done something and you can look back and say,
Yeah.
I've done it that time. So if I need to do it again, then you can do, and you can look at how you can progress and
I
grow.
don't know if I'd do it again. I possibly, in fact, a couple of my customers have asked, will you do it again next year to launch another blend? And I thought, well, I definitely need a year under my belt. I don't think I could do that every year. It was a lot. More of that bit around working on myself than anything else. But I wouldn't be scared to do it again. And the thing is, I actually really enjoyed it. So one of the ladies I'd spoken to said it. She said to me it was the most stressful thing she'd ever done in her life. And I was thinking, oh no, I'm not very good at stress. I'll burn out. I'm really worried about it. And like I'd built in some special treats for myself to kind of unwind while we were doing it. And I booked a little breakaway at the end of it so that I could switch off. Oh, but I loved it. I didn't need any of that. I
Yeah,
loved it. I loved seeing how much my community were behind it and how much Mother Cuppa was loved and they wanted the product. And yeah, it was a really special experience.
Yeah. Well, thanks for
Pleasure.
sharing this great story and telling us about your fears and having to build up on your mindset, because that's what our podcast here is all about: mindset, money, and
Yeah,
success. And so I'm
pleasure.
really glad that you achieved your target within the time frame and actually exceeded it. So that's really good. And your launch is when?
So the product is, so I've got the packaging that's already here now. The product is due to be launched in January 2025. Make sure I get that right, which
Yeah.
we might be in when this goes live. And then I'm going to be doing an online launch party and a face-to-face launch party as a thank you to my community. So that's going to be really lovely to try and get everybody together who was kind of involved in that. And yeah, I've got some things to do around sort of setting it up on the website and how to make the most of this new blend in my range. Yeah, so very exciting.
Great. We've got the end of the podcast. We've just run out of time, but you've been a really great guest. Thanks, Candy.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Thanks, Lorraine.